sent me a video of Brigitte Macron, Macron's wife, face slapping him. Yeah, that's wild, dude.
My favorite is the look into the camera once he realizes I got caught. Yeah, he's like, oh, and it's very, you could put like the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song right after that.
Imagine what goes on behind closed doors.
Brigitte Macron, Emmanuel Macron, President of France's wife, was accused first by French journalists and then by my friend Candace Owens, who's one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah, she's
very smart.
She's incredible.
And everyone's always, Candace Owens a hater. Candace Owens is the opposite of a hater, but she's a very kind person.
But Brigitte Macron has somehow turned into a walking billboard for why Botox sales in France are skyrocketing. Watching Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson tear into her is like seeing two heavyweight fighters tag team a fragile porcelain vase. Rogan swings with blunt force sarcasm, hammering away without mercy, while Tucker dissects her piece by piece, like an overpriced croissant left baking in the sun far too long. Together, it's not just a roast, it's a full-blown bonfire on the shams, flames high enough to light up the entire room.
You ever see her sit down?
I haven't seen her sit down.
She sits down like a dude. You know, dudes sit down? Sure. Watch this. Watch how she sits down. Bro, Macron's married to a man.
What you have is a couple that is willfully getting away with, at best, like molestation, sexual perversion,
he runs
deviance, and he runs the country.
This is not some random guy.
Yeah.
And that's not in dispute.
No, that's not. It was in dispute because they tried to at first say that he was 17. Now she's saying 15. The truth is Emmanuel Macron was 14.
I'll just go with 15 and say that's wrong.
Yeah, right? Do we even need to...
15, that's a whole different thing.
The entire Macron marriage has always felt more like a manufactured political stunt ripped straight from a French soap opera. Only instead of gripping drama, it's riddled with plot holes worthy of a bad reality show. Rogan wasted no time reminding everyone that Emmanuel Macron married his teacher, which sounds less like a grand love story and more like the creepy subplot from a made-for-TV movie no one asked for. Tucker, naturally, couldn't resist skewering how the French media gushes over it as if it's romance incarnate, when in reality, it's exactly the sort of story that makes Americans mutter about background checks and arrest records.
Comes out and she's like, I will wager my professional credibility on the claim that Macron's wife is actually a man. And I was like, Candace Owens, I love you, but I think this is too crazy.
Yeah.
And then it turns out she's right.
Yeah.
What? So can you just explain? My mind is blown.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and smash that bell icon. Rogan dives into the Macron age gap like it's a headline UFC main event. Brigitte is 24 years older than Emmanuel, meaning when she was grading his homework, he was still figuring out how to shave and tie his own shoes. Rogan pointed out that if the roles were reversed and a male teacher pursued a teenage girl, the world would erupt in outrage, Netflix would greenlight a documentary, and prosecutors would be lining up a criminal trial. But in France, it's celebrated like the Eiffel Tower on Bastille Day. Tucker then stepped in to dissect the media's glaring double standards, laughing at how the press paints Brigitte as France's Jackie Kennedy, when in truth, she's more like an awkward plot twist from a low-budget French soap opera.
If someone's bitch slapping you on a private jet, like, what is that?
Yeah.
That's a weird relationship, man.
But she was his teacher.
If it was a she.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole thing.
Bro, Candace Owens did like 5 hours on it.
Well, that's a little bit crazy.
Well, yeah, she's the wrong dog to go after you. Like,
right.
It's not simply that people notice the age gap, it's the ridiculous pedestal it's been elevated to. Rogan hammered home that Macron didn't just marry his teacher, he practically built his entire political career around her presence as First Lady. It's like he's auditioning for the title of the world's most obedient student. Tucker added that the optics are almost too perfect to take seriously. The boy who never outgrew his schoolboy crush somehow ends up running the country, still guided by the same woman who once handed him detention slips. It feels less like a presidency and more like a romantic comedy that forgot it was ever supposed to be funny or believable.
That's happening right now is this massive protest in France. Massive protest in France. 9 million people on the street. Literally up in arms.
This is about the Social Security change?
Yes.
Yeah.
Macron in France takes his fucking $80,000 watch off under the table while he's talking to people about tightening up and about how, this has to be done.
Bright herself has become more of a caricature than a first lady. The French media insists on dressing her up as if she's the embodiment of timeless elegance. But Rogan tore that illusion apart, comparing her look to the aftermath of someone permanently losing a brawl with a Sephora counter. She's constantly in the tabloids for her fashion choices, yet Rogan joked her style feels stuck somewhere between grandma at a Paris cafe and failed Vogue audition. Tucker then skewered the obsession with her wardrobe, calling it pure political smoke and mirrors. Distract the public with Chanel jackets so nobody notices her husband's approval, ratings are circling the drain.
But the fucking Brigitte Macron one is the craziest because I think she's right. Obviously I don't know. But at the end of the day, the first thing you have to say is, what kind of a 40-year-old dates a 14-year-old?
Right.
That's crazy.
Well, that's the thing.
Even if it's a woman and a man. Well, first of all, Kurt Metzger says it's 14. I think the internet says it's 15. But Metzger goes, but it's definitely 14. He was younger than that.
The funniest part is how desperately France tries to shield Brigitte's image. Tucker went all in on the lawsuits she's filed against anyone daring to suggest something unflattering about her personal life. He mocked the absurdity that, in a supposedly enlightened society, you can't even crack a harmless joke about the First Lady without an army of lawyers rushing to court. Rogan took it further, ripping into the fragility of a political class that treats satire as more dangerous than actual policy failures. It's as if Brigitte's image is France's final line of defense, the human Maginot line against criticism. Spoiler, just like the original fortification, it doesn't hold. She's less a romantic partner and more like a teacher who spotted a kid with ambition, molded him, and then built an entire political dynasty around him. Rogan hammered the point, mocking how Emmanuel Macron acts like the ultimate poster child for obedience, forever behaving like a man trapped in extra credit mode, still desperate to impress his former instructor.
I've known people who've done every bad thing, and I've never met anybody who's even been accused of that.
Yeah.
And yet you're describing two clusters of people where like tons of people in the orbit have been accused of or have in fact committed child molestation.
The best part is, for me, that they kind of laugh in your face. Like, they want you to know. There's an element of it that's partially sadistic. Presidential portrait, Emmanuel Macron leaning against a desk, obviously the official presidential portrait.
Yes.
He chooses to put a book by André Gide on the table. André Gide is an author who admitted openly that he was a pedophile.
Brigitte's sway over Macron is another comedic jackpot. Tucker roasted the idea that France is effectively being run by a retired schoolteacher dabbling in politics as if it were an afternoon craft project. He highlighted how often Macron himself openly admits that she's the one shaping his speeches, coaching his campaigns, and even steering policy decisions. At this point, it's less President Macron and more Madame Macron, with her dutiful understudy tagging along. Rogan ran with the joke, painting a picture of Emmanuel needing to ask his wife for approval on defense, spending the way a teenager asks for gas money. In truth, most Americans only know her as the teacher who married her student, which Tucker gleefully contrasted with the French media's constant insistence that she's a paragon of elegance. When Brigitte stands beside much younger First Ladies on the world stage, French outlets pretend she's holding her own, but the age gap sticks out like a croissant in a McDonald's breakfast menu. The frantic effort to make her appear eternally youthful is matched only by Emmanuel Macron's own habit of subtly trying to look taller in photographs.
This was actually well known in France. It all took place in public, but I don't think 1 in a million Americans had any idea at all until your series came out. And the initial reaction to your series was, now we know Candace is insane. Like, wife's a man? Come on now. And then as the series progressed and became one of the biggest podcast series in the country, sort of sober people were saying, actually, you should listen to this. But I just want to get to the lawsuit. They're suing you for defamation.
Naturally, the plastic surgery speculation practically writes itself. Rogan didn't bother with subtlety. He flat out joked that Brigitte's face looks like it's been locked in a permanent arm wrestling match with gravity. Tucker sarcastically applauded the French press for selling her as ageless, when in truth she's walking proof that elite dermatology has a thriving business model. Forcing the French public to pretend she's flawless is like making an audience cheer for a terrible play. Everyone knows it's bad, but they're told it's culture, so they dutifully clap along. Rogan had a field day with the bizarre role reversal dynamic, while Tucker skewered the marriage itself as something that feels scripted, a made-for-TV romance designed by French elites to give their president a fairy tale backstory. The problem? The plot is so stiff and awkward even Netflix would pass, calling it too far-fetched to stream.
Crazy. But the facts of the situation, 40 and let's say 15. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. 15 is, I have a 15-year-old. They're little kids, essentially. You know, they're like 3 years away from being an adult. Right. 3 whole years.
Well, you know what's interesting is that, like, I listen to a lot of true crime, and they'll say that, like, pedophiles and stuff will put themselves in situations where they can abuse, and I think that's why there's a lot of
Nickelodeon thing. It's like the Jimmy Savile thing in England.
The roast also dove straight into Brigitte's habit of inserting herself into political debates. She isn't content to just be a decorative first lady. She constantly jumps into cultural spats, delivers public lectures, and tries to sculpt France's national image like she's still grading term papers. Rogan mocked the absurdity of a first lady who acts like she's holding office hours, handing out moral lessons to the entire country. Tucker shredded the undemocratic optics of it all, how someone who never faced voters ends up wielding real influence. It's as if the French didn't just elect Emmanuel, they unknowingly signed up for Brigitte's syllabus too. And the younger generation isn't buying this fairy tale. The generational gap is so glaring that when Brigitte weighs in on culture, it feels like a broadcast from the pre-internet era. She's not exactly resonating with the TikTok crowd, unless they're busy turning her into the punchline of another viral meme.
She's got a 6-hour presentation on how Brigitte Macron is a man. I mean, it's fucking 6 hours plus long.
Brigitte Macron was actually born Jean-Michel Trogneux. Well, guess what, guys? He's missing. Well, 1,000%. She was born a man, lived as a man for 30 years, you know, and then transitioned at some time in the 80s.
Yeah, they would sue her. Yeah. I don't know if they are suing her. Have they tried to file anything? They probably.
I have welcomed the lawsuit. I mean, Emmanuel Macron sent me a threat before we published.
I'm pretty sure.
What makes this so brutal is that Tucker and Rogan don't just target Brigitte's age. They go after the hypocrisy, the over-glamorization, and the sheer political weirdness of the entire setup. France keeps trying to turn a peculiar romance into some kind of national branding exercise, but Rogan and Tucker rip it apart piece by piece until it looks less like sophistication and more like an ongoing joke. The harder French elites try to polish that image, the easier it becomes to mock. Brigitte Macron has spent years cultivating a reputation of elegance, timelessness, and guiding wisdom. Yet, in the hands of Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson, that polished myth disintegrates into dust. The irony? Brigitte practically invites this ridicule by projecting an air of untouchable perfection, because nothing screams "mock me" louder than pretending to be above it all while standing on such shaky ground. That's the beauty of this roast. Rogan lands the heavy punches, Tucker slices with surgical precision, and Brigitte Macron ends up looking less like France's regal First Lady and more like the accidental punchline of her own carefully choreographed fairy tale.
Only made the series go viral. Now it's going viral in Asia. They're not even on YouTube, so I don't know how they're watching it in China. Now people are going, okay, something must be true. A president of a foreign country does not sue a mom that does her podcast in her basement because she spoke something that was not true.
Yeah, that's not the way to hide things.
Right.
The way to hide things is say, poor Candace, nice woman, obviously mentally ill. That's the way to do it, and sophisticated liars do that.
Right.
So it is interesting.
The real irony Rogan and Tucker drive home is how France insists on presenting Brigitte as some symbol of progress, when the entire arrangement feels more like a throwback to an aristocratic era where leaders are chosen for image rather than competence. Rogan hammered the point that if Brigitte weren't wrapped in designer outfits and paraded on red carpets, everyone would just call the story what it is: a bizarre teacher-student romance propped up by an overworked PR team. Tucker took it further, skewering the French media for clutching pearls anytime outsiders dare to laugh at the spectacle. Then there's the relentless effort to reinvent Brigitte's public persona year after year. Rogan noted that all this rebranding makes her seem less like a dignified first lady and more like a political influencer scrambling to stay relevant. Tucker mocked how transparent the desperation has become, comparing it to a marketing campaign for a product nobody actually wants, yet one that keeps getting shoved in the public's face anyway.
Because she's hitting all the fucking third rails that no one wants to touch. She's got a 6-hour presentation on how Brigitte Macron is a man. I mean, it's fucking 6 hours plus long.
I don't know if she's even kind of right about that.
I think she's right.
But she's got a lot of shit to say on it.
Bro, she would be getting sued right now they're trying to bribe her. Instead of trying to give her money to shut the fuck up. Yeah.
And then there's the glaring hypocrisy of Emmanuel Macron himself. Rogan reminded everyone that the same man who lectures young people about taking life seriously is the one who literally married the teacher who once graded his high school essays. Tucker ripped into the absurdity of a leader who insists on preaching to the world about values, democracy, and modernity, while his personal life looks like something straight out of a French tabloid from the 90s. The disconnect is so glaring it borders on comical, and Brigitte's carefully curated image only makes the mockery easier. What makes this roast bite so hard is how it exposes the fragile ego of the French political class. Every time the establishment demands she be treated as untouchable royalty, it just makes the jokes land twice as hard, because no amount of Chanel jackets, glossy magazine covers, or overproduced PR campaigns can hide the fact that the Macron saga is one of the strangest, most awkward political soap operas Europe has ever witnessed.